my guest for today is one of the founding members of TOP and a band leader, solo artist, composer, arranger, and educator. His playing and behind-the-scenes work earned him both Grammy and Emmy Award nominations and an International Broadcasting Award from the Hollywood Radio and Television Society. My guest has arranged songs for the likes of Carlos Santana, Elton John, Chaka Khan, Rod Stewart, Luther Vandross, Aaron Neville, Quincy Jones, the Brothers Johnson. His current project, East Bay Soul, was initially with the live dates in mind, and the current album was released in, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but I think it was 2009, but it's timeless with its urban jazz feel that you've come to expect from my guest. Mr. Greg Adams, how you doing?
Hi, Barry. How you doing?
I read where you initially could have attended the Berklee College of Music, and you were instead lured into helping put together Tower Power. What was it about Tower Power that would make you decided on that as opposed to some more training in a prestigious school like the Berklee College of Music?
Well, the thing was I was planning on going to school for 5 years to graduate and try to get a kind of gig that was being presented to me right now at that time. It was 1970. I just graduated high school, and the band was in the studio recording East Bay Grease, the first album, and they needed a trumpet player, and they knew that I was an arranger, and I had been writing for my high school jazz band for like the last 2 years of high school, and experimenting and learning by all my mistakes. And so I was developing into an arranger and a composer, and so here was an opportunity to make a living, go on the road, see the world, all the things that I was going to go to school for 5 years to do, and still no guarantee. And here I had something that was presenting itself to me, and I had I was given the chair of being the arranger. Tower of Power was kind of they didn't really have, they had a horn section, but they didn't have anybody really to write for it. And so it was, I had known the guys for a couple of years. I played in bar bands when I was a teenager, got a fake license and grew a mustache and looked a little older. So I'd pal around with them once in a while and stuff like that. We'd play on the same club stages, and so they knew of me, and one of their trumpet players had left, so they offered me the position, and so we together shaped Tower of Power on the first record that the band did, East Bay Grease. So from there on, it was really, that was the identity.
And well, now,
and so and as the story goes, I did what I did, and it's kind of like instead of going to Berklee, I went to the University of Tower of Power. You know what I mean? I and that's how we got to do so many things with so many artists and work with so many people. So it really was my education.
Well, and as it turns out, I was looking through the catalog for Berklee College of Music, and as it turns out, they've got a class in learning how to play horn parts and whatever, the Tower Power songbook. So
I know that's the irony, isn't it?
So, and you were with Tower Power for how long?
25 years, 1970 to 1995. And
it was about that time that you decided on a solo career, and
well, yes and no. I really, really needed to do something different with my life. I was just really getting kind of tired of playing You're Still a Young Man and that kind of stuff. I didn't feel like the band was really growing anymore, and I just was dissatisfied with what was going on. And we were in Europe on tour, and I 2 weeks before we went home, I said, "Listen, guys, this is going to be it for me. I'm going to leave when we get home." And we were in, I can't remember. Next day we were in Cologne, Germany, and the record company called the club where we were playing, and got me on the phone and said, "Well, we're sorry to see you go, but we would like to offer you a solo contract because I'm a key player and on the contract with some Epic Records. And to tell you the truth, that hadn't even crossed my mind. I figured I'd just come back to Los Angeles and be a studio musician, because that's what I could do. Make a living doing motion picture and record dates and TV stuff. And so that kind of blindsided me. And it was just when the quiet storm, smooth jazz things was starting to happen. So I got in and did my first record, Hidden Agenda, and it did real well. But I've been on every major label, I think, in my career, and I've been on them and been dropped by them. So at the height of my single, which was Smooth Operator, it was like number one for 5 weeks, and the album was number one for 5 weeks. Epic decided to drop me. So here I was without a label to do my next record, and I did it on my label called Ripa Records. And it's interesting to jump into that and put that hat on and be a record company. But the second CD was doing real well, and my single Roadhouse was doing very well. Blue Note came along and offered to buy me out and put me on their label. So I said, Blue Note, that's pretty prestigious label, and I thought, well, that's great. I could be on this label. That'd be great. Back to having somebody to distribute my work and all that kind of stuff, and have a record company behind it. Well, that didn't work. So I got dropped by Blue Note, and then I signed with a record company called 215, and they squandered all the promo money for my Firefly record. So back to Ripa Records. So my last 2 CDs have been on my own label, and it's so much more comfortable. You can be on a record label, and they'll come up with a million reasons why they don't have to pay you anything. And I have my own set of books, so I know what goes on and what goes out, and how many units we print up, and the whole thing. So there's a comfort level that, to me, at my age now, is like, you own something. A record company owns you. So now with River Records, it's easier to do business. So you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, but now tell me this. Now, it's one thing to have a label, but in talking with other musicians who maybe control the label or don't control the label, is it how easy or difficult is it just to get a CD out there, even with someone the name of Greg Adams, who has developed a reputation in the business?
Well, the music business, the model for the music business has changed drastically. We all know that. And in many ways, that's kind of the demise. Yeah, but then when things change, you get kind of inventive, and you try to do it a bit different way, or maybe a non-conventional way that's never really been acceptable to do, and you try it, and it works. Sure, being a jazz trumpet player and playing contemporary jazz, I know I'm not going to sell millions of records. There's just not a market for that. But in my niche little market of smooth and contemporary jazz and an urban sound, I sell at my shows, and I sell through Amazon and CD Baby, and so you just get inventive, and we make the orders for 1,000 at a time, and we send them out from the office, and it's a small operation, but it runs smoothly, and you have control. So it can be done. It's a lot of work, and you have to work radio, and talk to program directors, and try to urge them to give the latest single a spin, and if they like it, add it to their playlist, and then hopefully it'll chart on the internet charts. And so, there's so much internet radio now that it's just the whole thing is blown open. So there's so many variables now that the internet has come along. It's just like, man, it's the opportunities are endless.
Well, and I'm sure also making it available on things like Facebook, the social networking sites has probably helped too, huh? Yeah. We have an East Bay Soul Facebook, and it's real active, and it's just you network like crazy. Yeah. Well, now tell me this. As far as just being just concentrating on trumpet, who would you say were your influences? As far as who did you listen to make you decide, well, I can do this too on trumpet?
Well, there's a lot of people that I admire for different reasons. Trumpet players. Of course, Miles Davis comes to mind first, and I just because I liked his style in so many ways. I'm a firm believer of in music and in life to pick your words or your notes wisely, and if the old saying, less is more. If you can say a sentence with 12 words, I think that's better than saying it with 15 paragraphs. I like a melody, and it's not all about fast and furious with me, and it never has been. I mean, I can do that, but I prefer a more lyrical approach to when I play, and for that I like Miles Davis, Freddie Hubbard, and then again I like the great lead trumpet players like Arturo Sandoval. He can do anything. He does everything, and Doc Severinsen was always a favorite of mine. Great, lead trumpet player. And then there's some guys here in town in L.A. like Rick Baptist. He plays on the Dancing with the Stars. He's one of the best trumpet players I've ever played with, and I've just played with him a couple weeks ago on a Mariah Carey recording session, and we'd known each other for about, God, I hate to say it, 42 years. We used to play in a youth orchestra in the East Bay, up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and it was this thing called Youth of America, and it was blue pants, red jacket, and white shirt, and a blue tie. And it was way, way patriotic, and it was at the height of the Vietnam War, and so a lot of don't even try to have long hair in this orchestra. You know what I mean? They were like red, white, and blue, buddy. And so, but Rick was the lead player, and I played second trumpet. He was in junior college at the time, and I was a junior in high school. So we were kids. So anyway, Rick and I know each other, and he is one of the most fabulous trumpet players in the world. So I have a lot of influences and a lot of favorites. So there's nobody I really emulate. I love Wynton Marsalis playing. Terrence Blanchard, too, is a great trumpet player.
Now, what is it about the influence of the East Bay? And you think about Cold Blood, Tower Power, of course, and what have you. What is it about that sound that would set it apart from music influences from other parts of the country?
Well, my stamp that I put on Tower of Power was really my sound. The way the horns and the arranging was, that was the face of Tower of Power, even more so than the singer, or at least equally as the singer, whoever the singer was in the era, whenever, because there were several singers in Tower of Power. So when I left, I took my sound with me, and I embarked on a whole new thing. And I would use horns on my record, but it wasn't like I was more the featured guy, and the horns would be kind of in the background. Tower of Power, after I left, they hired some people to try to emulate my sound in trying to arrange and write the arrangements like what would Greg do? You know what I mean? So, but I haven't really kept up with the band, but I know that a lot of people just said that it just didn't come up to the level that what I was doing, and so with this East Bay Soul concept, I desperately wanted to do something different than the regular smooth jazz, because I think that we all kind of see where smooth jazz has kind of taken itself, and it's I like to reinvent myself. And with this East Bay Soul project, I was like, let's go back to the roots, and do something that I know how to do, and make it more of an ensemble project. It's a big band; it's 10 pieces, and have singers and the whole thing, and kind of recreate what I think, or what I do the best, and that is create that sound. And I don't know, it just kind of really flowed. We went through several versions of East Bay Soul before we got into the studio with different singers and different personnel, and it was just, and it was constantly changing. We even tried it with Lenny Williams, the former lead singer of Tower of Power. And then I went to Phil Perry as the singer. And then it just wasn't, the chemistry wasn't right, and I hadn't really started writing songs yet. We were doing like some mixed potpourri of my stuff and maybe Lenny Williams stuff, or when Phil was in the band, his stuff. I hadn't found my center yet. And then all of a sudden, I said, you know what? Singers, they're the third sex to begin with. So they can't always hold a gun to your head. And I said to myself, I'm not going to get into this. And I'm going to have like several singers on the record, like how Quincy Jones did with The Dude. He had Patty Austin and James Ingram, and and careers were made out of that record, for those two singers. And I have 4 singers on the record, and we settled with one of the 4 as the go-to singer. He's the guy who does all the shows. His name is Darryl Walker, and he's just killer. Just a wonderful singer and a great guy. And I have Lee Thornburg in the band. He's also a singer, but he's also my lead trumpet player. And he and I were in Tower of Power for almost 9 years together before I left. And it's a great band. And if you, for the folks out there listening today, you really should check it out. I'm really proud of it. I think it's my best work to date. And hopefully you're spinning it. Are you, Barry?
I'm trying to wear the grooves out. So
anyway, it's fun. It's progressive, yet it kind of has a retro thing going for it. It has a little old school in it, has some new school, and a lot of variety, and there's some real good horn geek songs on there where the horn players will go, oh, there's like a couple of breaks where the horns kind of go nuts. So it's got a lot going for it.
Well, and again, it was through Facebook that I got exposed to the. To the record itself, and that's why that's why you and I have been talking. So that and of course your overall body of work as well. So, what is on the horizon for Greg Adams?
I'm not really sure yet. We're still really working on this CD and doing shows and eventually what happens in my creative process or something like that is it's like I just get a germ for an idea and I start writing with a few guys that I write with all the time and you kind of clear a path and it kind of takes you where it's going to take you. You know what I mean? I love to do another East Bay Soul type project just because it's fun and it's kind of that's where I'm at right now. But something else could come up and do something completely different. I really don't know, and that's the beauty of music. It's flying by the seat of your pants, pretty much, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Well, I do know that I can't think of the artist's name. I know he plays flute, but you've in your studio work, you've gotten back on a recording that so happened Mick Gillette was on the other original trumpet player with Tower Power, if I remember correctly. I didn't know if you did anything. You were in the studio with him on any of those tunes or not. I don't not having the CD in front of me, but
was that Mick's solo CD?
Somebody that played flute.
Flute? No. Well, gee, I don't know who that would be. I'm not familiar. Well, a flute player in Tower of Power was Skip Mesquite.
Right.
And he passed away
right.
not too long ago.
Right.
He and I wrote a song called Mahdi, the Expected One, about 35, more like 40 years ago, and we recorded it, and then I re-recorded it on my first solo CD, Hidden Agenda. We both did it over because it was such a cool song. But you know, if that's who you're talking about, yeah, that was Skip.
No, well, I tell you what, when I find it, I will get back with you. Like I said, we're on Facebook together. It's no problem. But I'll try to find it, and I'll remind you. And you know, if I'm right, then I will definitely let my listeners know as well. And if I'm wrong, I will admit that too. So it's no problem. What would you say? And my final question, as it relates to funk, I mean that's an important element of the Tuesday Midday Medley. What would you say are the most important elements of funk that make it what it is, from your perspective?
Well, first of all, that it's funky, and first of all, that it's greasy, and it's got to have the feeling. You know, it's all about the feeling. That's what soul music is about, and you know, you can't fool anybody if you ain't funky.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Well, you've maintained the funk tradition without a doubt. And I'm glad that you have taken the time out to just have this little conversation and educate our listeners, because that's a big part of this. I've got a lot of young people to listen to this show.
And it's my pleasure, Barry.
You know, and I thank you, and I know that you know, and I just felt like it. You know, I wanted to have a conversation, but it just educates my younger listeners who are making a decision on whether or not if they want to, you know, get in that business and in this business. In some capacity, so it's been most beneficial, and it's just good to talk to some good musicians every now and then. So.
Well, it's been my pleasure, you know, and I think I said earlier, you know, music is a language, and the better you can speak the language, the more, the better ways you communicate, you know, and when musicians play together, it's kind of like a conversation, and when they can bounce the ideas off each other and make music that people are listening to that they can understand. It's like you're speaking. So, you know, like Spanish, French, Italian, and music. It's just another language. And you know, if you're young, you should really study the theory of music. That's like the language. You know, how to put together a sentence, how to play a scale, how to ad lib, how to play jazz, how to play classical. You know, it's all part of the tools that you need to touch and use so you can speak the language of music better.
Well, thank you very much. I was going to ask you about that 6-part story that you put on Facebook about writing music and how it morphed into talking about I Love Lucy, but I think we'll let that go for right now.
Yeah, you know, the short Sunday short stories on East Bay Soul Facebook. Although I missed it last week, we were in Catalina doing the jazz festival over there. But yeah, I've been doing that. You know, it's a lot of fun to put together those stories. I'm going to put a book together and get a publisher to put it out. So I've been doing it for over a year.
Okay.
So I've got quite a few stories, and they're all archived. So we're going to look for a publisher and see what we can get it out to the folks in print.
Okay, then. Well, Mr. Greg Adams, thank you very much for taking the time out. And,
thank you, Barry. My pleasure.
All right. You take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.